And here we are with the 4-time world champion. Now, this is my mistake because, again, the website said it was wrong. So, Mr. Dean James himself. So, what are the 4 titles then? So, we've got, is it ISKA? What's the one you got?
ISKA, WMC,
WRSA, I think.
WRSA. Yeah, that's it.
Well, anyway, how are we doing, my man? How are you getting on?
All good, man. All good. Well, in these hard times, I've got my children with me now. This is my daughter doing a little bit of work, so I have to deal with all that. But it's stressful, isn't it? But everyone's stressed, so it's fine.
This is it. I mean, part-time fighter, part-time, dad, part-time, teacher and everything else. There's time for everything, isn't there? Well, full-time everything, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, man. But what's happened to your eye, bro?
Well, I was social distancing too hard, and you get caught sometimes.
As far as
I was wearing my mask and staying at the last 2-meter range, and things happen. The mask might have pinged too quickly. I don't know. Maybe it was sparring I should be doing. Who knows? It could be anything.
The door frame. That's what you've done.
I slipped. That's all it was. There's nothing else. Don't worry. I was just scratching my nose so hard, and then bang, you sort yourself out. It's one of them ones. But we move. So, regardless of how you're getting on at this time at the moment, when it comes to competition, obviously you used to be quite active, quite frequent as well. Now you're being a bit more, I don't know, selective about who you're going to fight, because the opportunities, everything else, commitments and everything else going on. Are you one for ring rust in general, like between fights? You want to sort of, I don't know, is it a factor at all?
I don't believe in ring rust. As long as you keep yourself in shape and you keep training, genuinely don't believe in ring rust. And I'll be back in when the fights arrive, I guess. The fights I'm interested in. I'm not interested in the nonsense of, I don't need to be that I'm a dad, that I've got these two, I've got 2 stepchildren. I'm not into the crap of the sport, and I think that's where you will get, not say you all, I mean where all people get to something that doesn't even mean anything. We don't get paid a lot for it. We do it for the love, and I love to do it is when I'm scared. If I'm scared, I'll do it. If I'm not scared, I'm not coming back. So it's not that I've retired, but I'm looking at the fact of that I'll pick the fights that I want to come back for, and that's not easy fights. It's not picking the fights where I'm taking like an easy route. Obviously, one championship was looming. Fortunate, not there. But I'm not getting out of bed for someone I don't respect. Not to say I don't respect. I respect anyone in the ring, but someone that I don't. Someone I don't value as being a threat.
I mean, this was an interesting point you mentioned on the phone earlier when it comes to, again, the opportunities now, because obviously when you first have to start cutting your teeth, you've got to take all the fights as such. You've got to put yourself in these situations. Whereas now when you start getting more established, you start having a bit more, okay, do I want to get up bed at the crack of dawn for this person? Do I want this effort? Do I want these sacrifices when I'm not going to get the dividends for it? And this is where it gets really interesting, where as much as you say you do it for the passion at this point, it's ironic this is the reverse of it almost, that, okay, if I'm not passionate about this fight specifically, I'm not going to invest my time. It's almost the complete reverse of it. It's an interesting transition. So at what point did you realize, I don't know, you had the option as such to then, okay, I'm worth more than what the standard is at this point?
I don't think it was an option. I think it was more of a fashion. Like there's everyone, you win one fight, everyone calls you out. But you lose one fight and everyone calls you out. But the difference is that the level that you're fighting at changes who you're fighting. So, I begged Tony after I lost the wrong with V. Begged him, give me him please in a rematch. I didn't want to go again until I got that right. And he's an amazing fighter, he's brilliant. But I felt that certain people weren't doing it for me anymore. So you go through the ranks and everyone can talk, which is fair enough. But what do I get for doing it? fight you, then it opens the door to somebody else and somebody else and somebody else. Whereas I want to open the door for myself and I'll fight somebody else and somebody else and somebody else. So it's like you're always looking forward, never looking back. And the way I looked at it was a lot of the lads were behind me. And that might sound quite arrogant, and I'm not rude or arrogant at all, but it's the way I've seen it. So I don't think I need to fight you lot. So it's, I'll let you lot fight along, you lot fight each other, and I'll beat the winner. That was the way I've seen it domestically. Internationally, there's some good boys out there. There's some really good boys. But I was winning. But what's weird is though, do you know when you lose, like I lost my last one, when you lose, how many people put the name in the pot? But how many people put the name in the pot when I was winning? Not many. And that's how I feel about it.
I mean, it speaks volumes, really, doesn't it? Because again, it's when, like, I don't know, you're vulnerable, they want to try and, I say vulnerable, again, when you're at the loss, they want to try and jump on that. And again, it's like, okay, someone put a thing on Instagram the other day, it's quite interesting. Like, everyone wants the tough fights, but they don't. Why do you cut weight if you want a tough fight? Why do you fight someone bigger than you? So no, people want smart fights. They want fights. They want to sort of build up properly. And this is where that conversation gets really interesting. And with your, I don't know, that stepping up in stage to international stage from domestic, where do you feel the biggest differences in that sort of skill level? Is it certain techniques as such, where they're more proficient? Is it timing? Is it speed? What do you think is a real level like difference?
I don't know. I just think some people can genuinely fight, and some people. Can you still hear me? Is that okay?
Yeah, I can hear.
Some people, I know when I'm in the ring with them, if they can fight or they can't. And there's nothing. It's like now it's about a social media platform. If you speak louder than me, you're better than me. But if you jump in the ring together, who's the best one? When I was coming through the ranks, I didn't do anything. I couldn't do social media because my parents, because of the cancer, my parents didn't know. So I couldn't shout off my mouth because of they'd find out through my uncles or my cousins, and so I kept it quiet. But with that, you get kind of like dignity and pride. So, and I was looking at people, didn't think I'd beat them. I was watching people, particular people that were the top of my rank when I wasn't ranked. I could beat him. I could beat him. I could do him. And you start getting this kind of sense of security. Then you start building on it. So it's like the differences between the UK is, I think we're very, very protective of our positions. Whereas a lot of Europe, if you look at France, for instance, they fight each other. How often? They fight each other all the time. UK, if you're UK, top level UK, you can't lose another UK fighter. That's it. So what happens is people avoid, and I hope to say I've never avoided anyone. I hope I never have. But it does happen where you can see, and I watch it all the time. Even my own boys, I watch it all the time, where people avoid people. Say, oh, they need a few more fights first, then they'll take the fight. Why? Your records are exactly the same. Why do you need more fights? Take the fight and work out who the best one is. And that's what I hope. I really hope that people look at me and think I've done that.
I feel like a lot of this comes from that whole fear of failure as such. Because again, if you've got a certain platform where, you know, I'll go out and die on my shield if I have to, and again, fight whoever and then fight the best of the best and start, you know, earning your medal who you are. If you have the security that you can do that, then I feel like people will then start, I don't know, gravitating towards it. Whereas if it's a bit of a, not so much cancel culture, but a sense of, okay, if you lose, you're now washed out, you're this, that, and the other. Whereas if you win, you're the GOAT, all this sort of the polar opposites. So I feel without having that as much of a, if people aren't allowed to fail, I feel they limit themselves to sort of safe fights and then get challenged. And again, like you're saying earlier about if you don't feel challenged or threatened to an extent, you're not going to get out of bed for it. And again, that's a sort of the other end of it almost entirely, that if you're not even entertained by it, it's not even worth the interest. I mean, with that in itself, then, do you feel it's more of where do you feel that comes from? That whole sort of, okay, once you've lost to so and so, you're now done. Where do you feel that comes from, like the sort of cultural thing?
I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I
Mm.
just want to know. I can only think for me. I can't think for other people, and I hope they instill that in other people that I coach now. My dad's always told me, "You're not the best until you're the best." So I've always pushed. So I never celebrated. I've never really enjoyed a win as such. I've always never reflected on a win. It's like all I ever thought was when I get the ring, who's next? Like, who do I get next? And then sometimes I get excited and sometimes I get like deflated by the names being given. Sorry, one second, I'll take these off. But you get excited or deflated, and that's I've always been that way. So it's always like I was always asking someone, like, get me what's the biggest challenge? Give me the biggest challenge you've got. I'll fight. Obviously, you got to deal with like promoters and tickets and all the other bits that which runs outside of it. But I've always wanted the best, just to know that I've competed with the best, and I don't complain. I've lost fights and I've won fights, but I've never really complained. But I've always, like, if I lose a fight, I don't go back in. When Ron promoter told me I need a couple of warm-up fights to come back, I was out the ring for 2 years. Need a couple of warm-up fights. No, I don't. I'll come back in. I'll be all right. I lost, so maybe you might be right. Who knows? You don't know. But for me, I don't need warm-up fights. Just put me in the ring and I'll be all right. I'll be okay. I'm all right on my own.
Something quite polarizing you said there. I thought was very prominent. How you said you're either deflated or excited, or there's not really much in between. Really, it's either you give a shit or you're sort of a bit lackluster as such. Regardless of the driving force there for you to then train and compete to the level you have done, then where has that been sort of driven from? Then is that sort of is it a bit of a not an insecurity as such, but a bit of an itch that okay, there's still more to be done? Is it like a certain goal in itself? What is it that you feel gets you out of bed in the morning if it's not the excitement of the win itself?
Yeah. If I'm scared of someone, they'll get the best out of me. If I'm not scared of you, I don't show up. I've had a few fights where I didn't want to do them. In like, I'll sit there with Tony and we talk all the time. Spend so much time talking about fights. It's when I don't feel I need to that fight. But I have to do them because it could be a total defense or something else, and I've got to do it. But they're the most dangerous ones because you're not on your ball. Like, I won't go running. Little things where if I know I can cut the ring off, I'll shut off and I'll just train to one thing. Whereas when I know that person's a threat, it's not about having the belt. It's not about anything. They can take my belts from me. I don't really care. Take them. But it's when I wake up, and when I wake up, it's that person being on my mind the first thing in the morning. It's when the person not on my mind first thing in the morning. So it's like, then that becomes a little bit more dangerous because you're not zoned into the opponent. So you lapse in your diet, so you don't make the weight. Because being all honesty, you just can't be asked. But you've got to do it because it's mandatory. So you've got to do it, and it's a fight that's there. But no, I just feel better when I'm in there with better people than me.
Regardless of how you then, sorry, when you're fighting people you're more afraid of as such in that sense, I use that just because it's the word you're using. But is it more of how do you fight in those fights then? Is it more stick to what you already know? Is it mixing things up? Is it like a flow state you get into? Like, what is it when you're fighting someone you have the fear of at that point?
Yeah, I love the fact that I'm scared. I love trying to work things out while I'm there. So it could be like Tom could set a game plan, and we set the game plan anyway way before the fight. And we're training for the game plan. But I love being in and working out. I love maths. Like, I'm not great at maths, but I love maths. So I love formulas. So it's like I've always been that way. From the start, before, like, trying to protect my body, because with having the new bell in, when I had my new bell, I learned how to be, so I turned strategic early on. So I was always thinking one step. I was thinking one step ahead of my opponent, always, so they can't get the shots off. And you get like, and I knew if I got blasted to my body, I knew I'd go. But to fight with a body shot like Andy Olsen, who can whack the body hard and find a way around his body shot, that, to me, it was like, that's maths. That's no longer a fight anymore. Trying to work out where he's going to put his feet, where he's going to put the punch from. I knew the punch was coming. And he hits the body hard. He does hit. He can hit. Like, he put Damien Train away, didn't he? And when I was fighting him, and Tommy said, okay, protect your body. So he did, like, but Tony's a magician, because Tommy said, like, just drop your elbow in. When he steps into you, drop your elbow so you can't hit the body. So my body, for the first bit of my career, for the first at least 10 fights, was weak. I only had surgery 2 years. 2 years before that, I had surgery. So it's not, and then that's not just a normal surgery, that's a new stomach you get put in. Do you know what I mean? So if you're thinking you can just bowl through someone, and with Andy, I didn't take him lightly at all. And I was always worried at the body shot of fighters in my division, which was Damien Train and Andy Olsen. And then Damien lost to Andy. Then I beat Andy, and I was like, do you know what? This is actually all right. So I started moving around, kept moving around weights. So I was going up, coming down, and going up and coming down. So no one knew what I weighed. So it was just weird.
So when it comes to things like that in itself, I mean, there's so much to go into with that. But when you obviously come back from the whole the cancer thing in itself, how did your training get affected and like everything else? Because again, like that's not even a factor I could have even considered. Like, you know, that sort of surgery affecting your durability in that sense. Is that something you had to recondition up from scratch then, or how did that affect your whole training in general?
It affected the training, but the difference was I sat so long watching. It's my best friend. He was fighting Thai boxing, so it's like when we went to the gym, the best thing I'd get is a fight out on Broad Street in Walsall, in Wolverhampton, on a Saturday night. Do you know, that's the best I'd get anywhere near fighting. But when that happened, it was just, I never ever planned to fight. Never on this, God's will. I don't care. Whatever anyone says, it's not on this planet Earth. I didn't want to fight. I didn't want to do it. Like, it wasn't something that, I just did it purely for fitness. But I couldn't train, so having to watch people. It was like a little crappy gym that smelled, and there's no windows, no ventilation, but loads of posters. So you get heritage. But I was surrounded by amazing fighters, and you don't respect it. Well, say you don't know it, not respect it. You don't know it until it's no longer there. And I was around them, and I wasn't training. And then when I did start training, I wasn't good. I was getting. He had like another gym coming down for sparring, and I was getting beat up by everyone. So I wasn't good. But the only thing that he did do was make me do it more and more and more. But because my dad did kickboxing, my dad could hold pads for me and stuff, but he didn't know I was fighting. So my dad would hold pads for me to get me strong to the chemo. So I'd hit past my dad. My dad, oh, where you going? I've got boxing. No, so I've got basketball, but I was really going to boxing. So I was always like, I was constantly lying all the time. And then when I turned around and told my dad, I didn't tell my parents on my first world title. They didn't know anything. They thought I played basketball. I remember being in Thailand, and I told them that I fell off I think I told them I fell off an elephant, because I was in the picture. So
what the fuck is that lie? It's like, oh, my dog hit my elephant ate it. Like, what the fuck is that's so elaborate?
Elephant, I fell off. So,
whoops,
but
not a motorbike, no, an elephant.
it was quite cool. But in the end, because my dad's Jamaican anyway, and my dad was like, "Good, you must be good." So I was like, "Oh, okay." So when I gave my belts, I told him what I was doing. I was like, "Dad, look, I won the British, the Commonwealth, European," and then my wife at the time, she was like, "You need to tell your parents. You've got to tell them that, like, so they know what you're doing." And then I went, "No, it's not the right time." Yeah, I know when it's the right time. And when I won the first world title, and I gave it to my dad. Walked in, was having a conversation. My dad, I was like, "Dad, I fight." So, "What kind of fighting do you do?" "Dad, I fight Muay Thai. Like, I'm a Muay Thai fighter." And he's like, "Oh, you good?" And then she brought the belts in.
He said, "I'm all right."
So I was like, "Yeah, I'm doing okay, Dad. I'm okay." And he's like, my dad couldn't get his head round the fact, one, I fight, two, I've lied to him, and three, the fact I might actually be okay at the sport. So
it's a mix of emotions.
Watch his brain work it out. It was hilarious.
Just clarted and patted the back as well in the same sort of breath. It's like, which one is it? I mean, with that in itself, and it's such a weird dynamic. It's sort of, it's like a reverse Billy Elliot, really, isn't it? It's one of them ones where like you're trying to hide it from him. But with that in itself, then, what was your reluctance to sort of tell him? Was it because you already lied about it in the first place, then, or was it just the general idea? Was it felt quite taboo from the word go?
What was that? Sorry.
So, regards of you telling him about you competing, full stop, and fighting, where was the reluctance to tell him? Was it just post like cancer? You didn't want him to sort of know you're in a vulnerable position? Was it because you already lied? What was the reluctance there to tell him?
I was wrapped in cotton wool. After what happened, like when I got to hospital, everything was just done, and it hurt my mum a lot if I decided to put her body in harm's way. So that changed a whole lot of how I addressed it, even not we, but as a family unit is addressed in a way where, like, my mum now, like, she's never been to any one of my fights. She can't believe I put myself in harm's way. When your body's support you this far and you're putting it in the bad place. But she doesn't understand like the etiquette of it. My dad loves the violence of it. My dad's quite an aggressive guy, so he loves the, like, if you knock someone out in round one, so can you get to round three? But then if you text to round 5 in points, why didn't you take it in the first round? So you can't ever win. You're always like on this slope, but you can never win. My mum's always been a little bit. She cooks for me after I finish fighting. Like on the Sunday, she'll cook, and I go to hers. I always go to my mum's, and then me and my mum are really, really close. But she doesn't like. She won't touch the belts. She won't have anything to do with it. She won't have a picture that I've won. Like, she's not into it.
I mean, as long as you sort of understand that relationship. Sorry, I thought you finished. Didn't mean to interrupt. But as I say, it's an interesting sort of thing in itself. That kind of reluctantly accepting it. Think, okay, I'll wash your clothes and stuff. I'll pat you in the back. I'll make you some food afterwards, but I don't want to see it. I don't want to know about it. That kind of happy medium. I'm supporting you, but yeah. But with that in itself, and even that's an interesting dynamic. Again, having gotten through something, your body been through that much, and that kind of cotton wool approach. Did you not feel a similar way in yourself? That sort of, okay, shit, that was almost me. So now what? Then putting yourself back in the fighting side of things. No, it wasn't your initial plan, but did that not come into your I don't know, thoughts at all? The fact I've put myself in that position anyway. I don't want to get close there again. Like, what was that like?
Really, like, I didn't ever think of it. I didn't ever think. I just thought for what I was training for, and that gave me direction. And when I had direction, I'm good. When I've got no direction, I'm pretty bad. So it's like I felt like I was moping around the house. Like, it wasn't. Then when I had something coming up, when Tom asked me to fight first, I was like, oh, geez, what I've got myself into. So I didn't want to fight, but can you see me?
Yeah, yeah, I can see it.
So I lost you then. But I didn't want to fight. I wanted to train and get fit. And then my head was just spinning anyway because of what I was going through, but there's a lot of aggression. Although my fighting style, I don't think suggests that, but there's a whole lot of aggression because all you want to do is kind of impose pain on someone. And if, like, it sounds really nasty actually. Tegan, can you get me that thing, please? If for the iPad, please. But if you've got enough, I guess, like enough venom, and that's what it was to start with, and that's why I think I was knocking people out. That's what I think it was. It wasn't like my tech. I knew I was technical because everyone said, "Oh, you're technical, you're technical, you're technical," but I didn't know what technique was, so I didn't know. I used to like look up to Remy Bonyaski with totally different styles, but I used to love his knees. He used to jump through the air and knee people. Like Liam Harrison, when I was looking at him in the early bits of career, you have like role models you look up to, like Val Denton, Winston Walker, Kirkwood Walker. There's so many people I looked up to. Damien Hood, Carla Hood. You've got all these people. It almost becomes a little bit more natural because your opponent can't be as good as what you're sparring with. So it wasn't easy, and I still get I get nervous now that I don't get nervous. Like I was nervous at Yoka. I was talking to Tony. Obviously, that felt like I got knocked out anyway, and that's the first time I've ever been dropped. But I was nervous, so I got in the ring. We didn't have long to train for it, but I got in the ring. I was talking to Tony. I was like, Tony, I'm nervous because the nerves, they're not here. But I was nervous in the wrong way, not necessarily the right way. So when you're normally nervous, you look at the opponent, you're nervous at them. I was more nervous at myself, like what's going on? Why is it not showing up? Yeah, so I don't know if that's your question, but
So the question initially I had was about being aware of your own sort of vulnerability, that obviously coming your experience with cancer in itself, to then coming back thinking, okay, my body's been through that much trauma, I'm now putting myself through that again in a different sort of format, and that sort of your willingness to do that. But again, you sort of answered it roundabout way, saying how it wasn't even on the radar, it wasn't something you even took into consideration. So by getting on with it, you realized, okay, I'm actually all right. Whereas if you were to even, I don't know, think about it, you might have put yourself off of it unnecessarily. And with that in itself, then, does that affect your weight cutting? Or did it affect your weight cutting at all?
It did. Like, so sometimes I can lose more weight than other times. In my stomach, if I pull too much, so I can walk at, let's say I was at, God, what was I? I had to come down to 57. I was at 68 when I got the phone call for the fight. That was 6 weeks. But I got to 60, my body just locked. But I had problems with my stomach. So the only way I can do that is by eating. So I have to eat. So I was eating up. And then it was like, now you're 63.5. So I had to go for, and this is crap. I know it's not the best advice to anyone, so please don't take this. Went for a full breakfast at like a local Wetherspoons. Then I came back and I was like, well, my stomach's still hurting. When I got myself an egg sausage sandwich straight after that. I was just eating and eating and eating, but I lost 3 days of not eating to my stomach. It's like, I need to eat, and the only way I can do it, I didn't want pasta. I was tired of that. I was tired of carbs. I was tired of salads. And like even your proteins. So like to get the weight, I normally come down by like protein and normally cook my carbs. I get down to the weight easily. on this one, I told Tony like about 2 weeks out, I'm not going to make the weight. I guarantee, because I was fluctuating. I was going up, I was going down. Then I was up, then I was down, and he's like, oh. Then he said, "What are you eating?" And you don't want to lie, but you have to lie. It's your coach. So
Tweak it a bit, yeah.
Not been eating much. I had a cucumber, cucumber and egg,
Cucumber my bagel.
avocado and egg.
On top of my fry up, yeah.
But the weird thing was though, mate, like I went to that POS tournament, and that's the easiest. Like, I could have easily made 55, easily. I wasn't thinking about the weight, so I went there. Me and Gert, the guy took me up. We had a full breakfast in the morning. What else we had? We stopped at the service station. Had a pasty. He had a pasty. Got there, and I still came in at 60 kilos for a 16.5 kilo tournament. But now that wouldn't happen if I had to make 60 kilos. So you just like, oh man.
I mean, this is kind of it, though. You get away with murder these sort of stages, especially with these sort of variables as well. But like, as long as you know yourself, you can't rely on that sort of thing as well. Like, it's a madness. With that in itself, then, is that same day weigh-ins as the day before?
That was the day before. So I came in like, I even stepped over someone on the way to the scales. Like when I jumped in that tournament, because I think we had 5 days. One of the fights from the gym, he pulled out, so I had to take his place. Because the tournament, I get on really well with the promoter, and he was like, "Oh, if he pulls out, then you're in." So when he started training, I started to run. I was doing running, a little bit of sparring, and then when he pulled, I was like, "Oh shit, now I'm in." Do you know what I mean? So I swear or not, I don't know if I can swear. But
I'm sure you can work it in somewhere.
I'll say, "Oh crap, oh crap, I'm in." And then I got to the weigh-in, got to the hotel, jumped in the scales, had a little look, thought I might need a salt bath because what we ate that morning, might need a salt bath just to get me down to 60.5. And I looked at it, I was like 60. So you are joking. Like, how can I not make this? I have to fight 57, but then I can't.
I said another pasty in hand whilst you're weighing on the scales as well. It's like, okay, I'll stop here. It'd be rude not to. I mean, this is kind of.
I went to the weigh with a Mars bar, so I don't care.
Just getting everyone's there as well. Everyone's sort of like just gore and sucked in, like just dying. There's you just like in Mars bars. This that, and the trailer like breadcrumbs behind you as well. Just all the junk
The
food.
only thing that gave me any kind of confidence, mate, was when I watched people doing what I do to make 55. And I looked at him, I was like, well, he'll be dead tomorrow. But then you work out, it's 3 rounds, so you haven't got time to get to him. Like when you cut so much weight, you need 5. Because 4, like 1, 2, 3, you should be all right. 1 and 2, you'll be fine. 3, you can survive. 4, 5 is where you can pull away. But these guys, man, I thought Mohamed Maraman. It's Mohamed Maraman.
I think Marvin,
Yeah, the guy beat Coakley. He knocked him with that elbow. Yeah, I fought him in the tournament.
Is that Yako?
No, I fought him on Power Scotland number. I can't remember what number it was. It was the tournament, and I got him first. And all I said was, when Tom said, "Who do you want? Who would, if you make a wish list, who would you want?" I was looking along the line. I was like, don't know. They're all fucking big today, aren't they? They're all big.
Yeah.
So yesterday, I'd have picked out everyone that I wanted.
I see, like, ooh, what was I signed up for?
Do you know what I mean? Someone's give me my knife and fork and I'll chop them up. But I got in the ring, and then when they did that, they had to give out a ball to someone. So Shawsey, I looked at Shawsey, I thought he looks massive. Dixon, massive. Ogden Topic, massive, but I wanted him. Who was the other ones? The Spanish kid, big. And I'm there, and then my mate, who Tony wasn't there, then he goes, "Oh, just keep the guard up, keep tight." I was like, "Oh, that tells me something's going to go wrong today."
Yeah.
And I got Mo in my first fight, and mate, he went after me out the blocks. He went after me. But if it was 5 rounds, I think I'd have done better than I would have done. But Sorry.
That's all right, man. No worries. So it's one of those ones where, like, on the day you got all these names, thinking, okay, who can I even go against? They haven't got much time to sort of strategize or do much. But again, like, when you're getting less is more advice of keep your hands up, stay relaxed. It's like, like people listening who aren't familiar with that kind of like setup, it's a bit like, okay, you got to sort of gather when it's just saying, okay, try and not get too scared and too hurt, and damage retention, I think. But no, I mean, in itself, then, like, weight wise, how did you feel in there, like strength and size wise? Do you felt you were about right? Do you feel you're quite depleted anyway because of everything else going on? Did you feel you're outsized at all?
What with that way?
As that specific event, yeah.
I just felt I wasn't strong enough. I knew, but we knew that before I stepped in. I'm a 57 kilo fighter. I'm not a 63 and a half. But it's weird because when they hit you, everything's fine. I think Mike Tyson says everything's fine until you get hit. And then I was all right. I looked at thought I'm the same kind of height. I was slimmer, same kind of height as you. But when they bang you, it's like, oh Jesus, this is the difference of like no bantamweight or featherweight's done that. Not hit me where I start thinking. Well, no, actually two have done it lighter. And the weird thing is the one was at 53 and a half. But I think because I was so dehydrated, his shots were coming so hard. I didn't expect it out of such a small body because I thought 53 and a half. But given my height, I stand around about 5'10", 5'11". He's 5'5". And then when he whacked me, I was like, oh, gee, how can someone so small generate so much power? Rungravi, 5'7". I felt when I moved up, no, I couldn't deal with. It wasn't the power of the shots necessarily. It was the fact they could bully you, they could push you around. So it's like in the clinch where I feel I'm most comfortable. Elbow exchanges, I'm comfortable, but you just push me and shove me out of the way, and then come in when he wants. Yeah, he's hitting right. So I was trying to move around the ring, and I like to hold the center. I've always held the center of the ring. That's what I do. I'll touch gloves and I hold the center. Couldn't do it. I had to go to the ropes, and then when they're on you, and they're constantly shoving you, it's tiring you as well. It's like getting shoved, getting checked, getting kneed from miles away that you think they can't land. So it's just an absolute nightmare. But I'd do it again. I'd do that fight again, 100%. Over 5 rounds, I'd fight Mauro Rahman again. 5 rounds, I'll be all right. Because he's tired. He started getting cut, and I started cutting him with elbows in the third. But it was just it was hard to stick in there with him. He's so dangerous, and he's so good. I don't think his normal, traditional Thai boxing style is more of a problem for me. But he's good.
So, regards to those kind of styles, and when someone shuts down your game like that almost entirely, what is your now in hindsight process to deal with that? Then is it change up things entirely? Then is it try what you're doing with more force? Then what's the biggest sort of stylistic change you can make at that point?
I don't know. If I could answer that question, that'd be brilliant. But I think it was survive and then find. So it was like where's he going? He's hitting with these shots. So I think he hit me with the jump knee. He hit me with the jump knee to he hit me on my chin, the jump knee. It was so many random styles, but he shut my style down, which is good. That's really good. And it's good for you to learn. Do you know what I mean? It's good. So like when someone shuts you off, what can you do?
You have to answer those real questions again, because it's all well and good. What you do what you do and it works. Happy days, no one gives a shit. Whereas then what? What happens when A goes, where's the B, where's the C, where's even the confidence to even address that? Like when that was happening to you in the fight, then was it each round it was rinse and repeat? Was it okay? this is the first problem I'm facing. Next round, try a different thing, new problem. What is it? Is it just walking in the same kind of obstacles?
No, it was just trying to work out like where he was going to go, which was he was all out attacking. We touched gloves. I knew when we touched gloves, like touched my gloves and stepped straight into me. I was like, okay. But I was the smallest one in, so I knew everyone was going to fight me and attack me. I knew it. But it was his vision's different, like the reverse elbows, the jumping elbows, jump punches. And then I was like, okay, came back to the corner, I spoke to Tony. Tony told me to, okay, step off now, maybe go safe ball. So I went safe ball for a little bit, try and work out if I could do it. Couldn't do it. But the third round, when you're all out, yeah, sorry, Don, yeah. Sorry, my daughter's talking to me, sorry. But it was like, in the third round, I had nothing to, I knew I lost. So you go all out. And when I went all out, I was like to cut him. And I thought if it had been 5 rounds, I would have got him. But it wasn't 5 rounds and he won. So you can't celebrate something you don't have.
I mean, again, that hindsight is very important as well to understand what you know now and the difference in your approach going forward anyway. Because again, it's all well and good saying, oh, if I knew this, I would have done this, that, and the other. I mean, it's completely irrelevant. But whereas the fact you're able to address, okay, it being the case it was, that strategy might not have worked. And again, thinking the bigger picture, like you said earlier about weight differences and again, trying to stretch these fights out when they've depleted quite a lot versus the pace you can set and that kind of thing. It's all comes with experience. Now, regards of, I don't know, where you go next, say you find an opponent that excites you and then you get the date signed for whatever else it's going to be. What's the ideal weight for that? What's the ideal sort of, I don't know, game plans in the sense of it doing what you always do? Is it mixing things up? What is it?
If it mixes things up, like I love the whole idea is that everyone wants it as well. Everyone's got to want. I just want to be where the boys play. That's where I want to be. But at the minute, I'm not signed to one, so I've got to work around it. So that means I'm not going to be select to one weight. And I'll only come back and fight someone if I want to. I've got 2 children and 2 stepchildren. I don't need in the ring every other month. I can do that. I've already done my bit. I've had 38 fights. Now it's more what gets me out of bed to run. If you can't get out of bed to run, we're not doing the fight. Like that's the way I feel. And obviously my daughter now, my daughter's turning 12. Like, do you know what I mean? My stepdaughter's like 10, she's 13. My stepdaughter's 9. My son's 8. You lose all the time from them. So every time I have to fight, they lose a bit of me. Because I have to, and I'm not the same person when I've got to train for a fight. I know I'm not. I can't be the same with them as what I am normally. Sorry, she's looking at my daughter then. She's trying to cook. I don't know what she's doing. But it is just meaningful fights now. Like I'm not retired at all. Not retired. Give me a meaningful fight and I'll come back. Like, I mean, and say come back, it sounds like I've left actually. Yeah. Give me a meaningful fight and I'll fight.
I mean, it's a huge thing in itself, and I like that distinction a lot. I like the overall understanding the bigger picture that, again, people want that urgency to come back. They want to stay in the spotlight. They want to sat in the other, but they don't see the bigger picture. And it's the fact you can identify you're a different person and camp a different person in the ring, that kind of stuff. Again, it's sort of the level of sort of self-awareness that people don't quite appreciate, especially being aware of those around you. Because even fighters without the same sort of commitments, people are around them anyway. They must know they're an arse when they're not when they're cutting weight. They must know they're a bit miserable. They know they're a bit snappy, everything else. If they don't, they'll get told quite abruptly, I feel. But I appreciate your time. I appreciate, with commitment to everything going on. I appreciate your time and everything. Regards of social media, where can people find you?
DJ 5892 on Instagram. See, I have to think about that one. I'm crap on social media. I'm absolute crap, mate. So
no problem at all. Links to that will be in the description. Be sure to check out our sponsored English Hypnotist and keep an eye out for Fisticuffs merch dropping soon.